So I bet you there's people who see you in the grocery store and just kind of turn and avoid you before they notice, like because they have like chips and like pizzas in their grocery cart too, right?
I have definitely been guilty of that myself. um,
And I think it's such a cool name now that I understand the philosophy. So for those out there who are just wondering why would you call a clinic one elephant?
yeah.
Go.
So the idea really came from the it's based on a story, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story, but it's the story of the six blind men and the elephant. And
Yes.
the story goes as these men kind of approach a structure in the middle of the forest, and they don't know what it is. So they are touching different parts of this structure to figure out what they're seeing or feeling rather. And so one of the men was touch the side of the elephant and thinks it's a wall. One of them is touching the tail of the elephant, thinks it's a rope. Another's touching the leg, thinks it's a tree trunk. And it's not really until they're actually communicating with each other about what they're doing that they're able to come to the conclusion that this is in fact an elephant.
Yes.
And it just represents collaboration and communication, which is what we are all about. And all of us have such a passion for collaborative health and really what you spoke about at the beginning of having this trusted circle of care that your patients can all be referred to, but having it all under one roof and being able to
Mm,
even just together work with a patient, not just one-on-one, but actually bring the team together in sort of a round table approach and actually speak with your patient like that and build that sort of connection as a team.
yes.
So that story really resonated with everybody, especially
Mm.
the three of us. And so it was sort of a no-brainer that we wanted it to be reflected in the title and the name of the clinic
Yeah.
somehow.
One of the terms that you said earlier that I want to come back to, and I'm just going to give it to you to just give your definition of it because I use it a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to hear like the dietitian's version of what this means. Relationship with food. When we
Mm-hmm.
throw that phrase around, like what exactly do you mean by that?
Um, I would define it as I would define it as what, gosh, I'm so much better when I have a minute to like write it down. I would say
Mhm.
your relationship with food is the way that you,
Do you want me to give you a minute while I just kind of throw my definition out?
yes, sure.
Okay, because I know we think similar in that way. You kind of
Yes,
have
we
to
do.
process something before just like
There's a lot
throwing
of
it out there.
silences in our conversations. So we just sit
Yes,
there and give each
yes,
other like 10 minutes to answer the
yes.
question.
I think that's the counselor side of me too, like not being afraid of silence and just know that if it's like dead silence, that like you don't hate me in this moment and we are just processing. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
had to get very used to your silences. They used to make me ramble.
yeah,
Like anytime you'd stop talking, I'd fill the gap and then it would just turn
yeah.
into a hot mess.
No, no,
Anyway,
yeah, no,
yes,
we
please,
could.
let's hear yours.
So definition of, I guess, relationship with food.
I think of it as how we interact with the fuel that we need for our body. And there are times that we mindlessly just take consume food, and there's times that we just have been conditioned by our upbringing or whatever that this is just what we do. So I celebrate with food. I'm bored, I eat. Something awesome. Let's go out for ice creams together. You win a soccer game, you go. So over time, our relationship with food is just the way that we interact with it, just in terms of our mental connection with the things that we eat. And we have difficulty disassociating the fact that food is fuel. And at this point, my body needs protein and carbohydrates, or needs some kind of fats because I'm whatever. Like we don't think just in terms of analog this, or this. We associate food with our past experiences, and now that's the thing that sometimes people have to come to you to kind of rewrite that script on what that relationship with food should really be.
Yeah, and that's a great definition, I think. And I would also define it as just the place in our lives that food holds.
Hmm.
Um, for those that I've worked with who have quote unquote a negative relationship with food, or not even a negative relationship, but just a complicated relationship with food, it
It's
has
complicated.
it's complicated, yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us could probably answer that as our relationship status with food. Um,
Hmm.
it holds a greater place in certain areas of our life than it maybe than we'd like it to. So,
Yes.
over time, that relationship will change. And I think that as children or as babies, infants, that's really the purest sort of form of
Hmm.
where the place food holds in our lives. It's really to sustain, to survive, right? And to
Yes.
give us that fuel. And then over time, because of the complexities of life and parenting and, you know, environment and relationships, it starts to hold kind of a bigger weight over time. And
Mm.
it's not that I don't even think I would ever define a relationship with food as negative or positive.
Okay.
I think it's really just it's your relationship with food, and it's very personalized, and it's understanding whether that relationship is serving you or helping you, or
Yes.
is it holding you back from anything in particular that you really want to move forward with. And that's where we
Yes.
start to have to dig deeper, is when someone can say my relationship with food is impacting other relationships or other areas of my life, and it's now
Mm.
becoming it's holding too much weight.
It didn't escape me the fact that you corrected yourself from saying should to would like it to be sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, even that phraseology is saying like there's no pressure, there's no onus on the food in the relationship. It has no weight in and of itself, but it's relationship in relation to other things.
Mm-hmm.
I like what you're saying about what your message is. And when I'm talking about Pilates, I talk a lot about like that, what my message is as well, in terms of helping people to just move better, feel better, be their optimal selves. And that's what the message is. And the other part is that who is your message for? Whereas like in Pilates, I love to say like Pilates was designed by a man for men. Therefore, I want to get men back into the studio, back into Pilates, back to the mat, because they look at it like, oh, there's just some. And sorry to all the dancers out there, because I feel it sounds like I'm hating on dancers who do Pilates, but I'm not. I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there who dance, and then you see someone doing Pilates and they can stretch and put their foot behind their head, and some guy looks at like, I'm never going to do that because I'll never be able to get that flexibility.
Yeah.
So I come back and say like, well, actually Pilates was designed for men. Look at your athletic stance. Look at how tight your hips are. This is going to help you to move better, to get that slap shot, or get that kickoff faster, or whatever. Long-winded way of saying, who is your ideal client for that message?
um I know you're only supposed to have one, but I have two.
Okay.
I have two because one of them came to me a little later. But I think my ideal client is females are my ideal client,
Okay.
um, and usually women that are generally in a healthy space and have, you know, it's not necessarily a weight loss goal, but it's usually a patient who will come in with a weight loss goal. And then we end
Okay.
up diving deeper, and it ends up being somebody who just wants to feel better. So we're tackling digestion, and we're tackling energy, and we're tackling
Hmm.
sleep, and we're tackling this relationship with food, and why are you craving these foods over these foods at certain times. So
Yes.
really, like women are my ideal client. I know that's very broad.
No,
Um,
it's fine.
but to me, connecting with women is my happy place, and I think that's my purpose in life in a weird way, is just to help
Hmm.
women feel amazing and beautiful, because I don't think we're getting enough of that from external, and I think we need it internally first. So
Yes.
that's one. And
Love
then
that.
over the last few years, and probably since I worked at a high school, right out of my master's, teenagers have become a very interesting passion of mine. To the school I worked at, I was really scared, and then I found that year to be one of the best years of my life. Even though I worked so hard, I just loved these kids. Like I loved my students so much, and I realized that they are just they're sponges. They also,
Hmm.
this is when they begin to really identify who they are, and
Yes.
with social media in the mix now, which it wasn't when I was as much when I was working there, there's just this constant pressure, and it's not
Mm.
talked about enough. So I started to see a lot of teenagers in my practice a couple of years ago, and it was a very interesting mix. It was either athletes who their parents were telling them to come into the office so that they could make sure they were eating well for their performance in their sport, or it was young boys and girls who now were beginning to see body image issues and disordered eating practices because of this ideal of what they were supposed to look like based on Instagram and Facebook. And these are 15-year-olds or 13-year-olds who are seeing these Instagram models who have bodies that have been literally just constructed.
You have this privilege of giving people permission to feel a certain way, to look a certain way, and to put back in perspective what is truth. And I love that. The one thing that you said earlier that I wanted to kind of run back to, when you said you reached a crossroads with working your business and deciding to go full time. As personal trainers, and even in Pilates, it's really easy. Not easy, but like it's more commonplace to hear people say, "I went and did this on my own." But you don't hear that with RDs too much. Like everyone wants to work in a hospital or work in some kind of clinic and just kind of find a safe, comfortable spot.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to jump out on your own?
I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't like a bravery, like an act of bravery or anything. It was more so, I think there's multiple stages to it, I would say. So I knew from the beginning, I think, that I wasn't going to work in a hospital. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with it. I actually really, really respect dietitians that work in hospitals. The one thing I wasn't getting from that was just the longer term connection and the ability to follow up. I would leave a patient in a hospital and not know if I was going to see them again or if they were going to be discharged the next day before I got to them again. So that sense of connection is something that I value most in my job. So I knew that wasn't necessarily the road I was going to go for an area. So I worked in like an executive medical clinic in Toronto, which was great. But again, you see the person once a year. And then I moved on to actually pilot a program for a pharmaceutical company that was using, this type of nutrition counseling almost as part of their sales, I guess, strategy, was to provide this additional service or added value within pharmacies, which was great. I felt like I could do and that went on for about 1.5 years, and I enjoyed it, but the program itself actually ended for reasons kind of that had to. At that point, the crossroads was I was probably 4 or 5 months out from getting married, and then no job. I chose the most unpredictable, insecure direction right before kind of having to all of the like expenses and the stressors of getting married. But I think that was actually the perfect time, because I knew in my own mind that if I do this, I'm going to have to just give it 1,000%, because there's no other option right now other than to make this work.
That's awesome, because, I always see that those are the things that are the difference between your perspective on the situation you're in. It's scary. Like, I'm going to vomit every single day because I can't think, I'm so scared. Or it's like an adventure. And let's go on this adventure and let's see where it goes. And if it fails, we learn something. And if it prospers, then we can look back on it as a moment of bravery, as much as you don't think it is. It really is. Do you agree when people say that like every person is a salesperson?
I think that if you have a passion for something, then yes. I think that you could, if you really love something or care about something, you can sell it for sure. I think there's different types of salespeople. But yeah, in a way, I do think everybody's a salesperson. It's just that you have to put each person into an environment where they feel they're really talking about something that they care about. Like, I could never sell a vacuum, like that's just, I don't have anything exciting to say. But if you asked me to talk about nutrition or health or anything like that, I think that it doesn't, for me, I never feel like I'm selling a service. I'm really just working with somebody to tell them, how can I help you in this situation? And if they choose to trust that I can help them, that's great. If they don't, I'm also never offended by that, because
Right.
in the health world, or in the fitness world, it's all about the connection more than the actual
Well,
sell.
yeah, being on the shopping channel, today's shopping choice, like the ladies and guys there, like Denise and Sean Kino and Nick, all these guys, they have to like sell emerald rings and then turn around and sell vacuums and then hair dryers and then sell a Tony Little gazelle all in the same breath, right? And it's like I realized from watching them that really, you know what they're doing? They're not selling anything. They're just trying to create a story around that product. Imagine the way that you can save some time by vacuuming with this vacuum instead of this vacuum. Or like you come home from work and then your kids are able to operate this really super light vacuum so you don't have to do it anymore. Or you know what I mean? Like they do something, they create they're masters at creating a story around whatever it is. And I think it's the exact same way for us. Like we can create a story around nutrition and all those different things. It's so much easier to sell when you can paint a picture for the people of what their
Mm-hmm.
life will look like when they don't need to take 15 different medications every single morning, but just making some adjustments to their diet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never thought of it like that. It's true. Yeah, if you're basically showing somebody the potential result of, or how they could potentially feel. And when
Right.
you attach something to a feeling, that's really where we start to connect, right? Because we
Yeah.
want,
Yeah.
every time I talk to somebody and ask them, like I'll often ask my patients, like, can you describe to me how you want to feel,
Right.
right? Versus
Yes.
what is your goal? Because a goal can be, I want to lose 10 pounds, but what is that going to mean to you? Like how is that going to make you feel? Are you going to feel more confident? Are you going to feel
Hmm.
more energized? Are you going to be able to move better? Like what is the actual feeling that's attached to this goal? And we don't look at things like that. So as a patient, that might actually, even being asked that question by somebody, that can also make them feel comfortable and trust that this
Yes.
process might actually get them to a place beyond just this number goal or whatever it might be. It's that I'm
Absolutely.
changing, and I'm going to feel good.